listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the new webinar series by the California Career Cafe. We're going to be talking today about how do I know if this is the right career for me or work-based learning that works. My name is Susan Coleman. I'm the project director for the California Career Cafe. And I want to welcome you and thank you for joining our webinar. This webinar is brought to you by the California Career Cafe and funded by SB 70 through Irvine Valley College. I'm going to turn you over now to Christine Friend, who will give you some of the logistics for the webinar.
Thank you so much. I am going to just quickly walk you through some items that have to do with technical details of the webinar. The entire webinar is being recorded and will be available for future viewing on the Career Briefs website. And the link to that will be provided at the end of the webinar. So you should see a control panel similar to this one on my screen on the right side of your computer monitor. If you don't, then look at this little bar area over here, a small group of icons on the top right corner. You can use the double arrow key to expand the control panel. And if you have any questions, there's a questions box here. You can use that area to send them to me. If it's technical, I will try to respond to you as quickly as possible. If it's a question for Rita and Susan or any of our presenters, please feel free to go ahead and send them throughout the webinar, and then we will answer them at the appropriate time later on. So now I would like to introduce Rita Jones. Most of you know Rita and all the great work she does for the Career Cafe. So without further delay, I'm going to turn things over to Rita. Rita,
Okay,
can you hear me?
Thank you, Christine. Yes, I can. Oh, show my screen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Is my sound loud enough? I'll just do a quick sound check.
I think you can turn it up a little bit, but I think you sound pretty good.
Okay, great. There you go. I'm all the way to the top then. All right, this says I need to bring up my screen. Sorry. And we'll get the slideshow going. Okay, hopefully, Christine, just to check that you can see my PowerPoint now.
Everything looks great.
Okay, all right. Sorry, now we're ready to get started. All right, welcome to everyone to the webinar, and I honestly could not be any more pleased about our topic today, and that's mostly for two different reasons. Number one, I feel like finally we've been able to really recognize work-based learning as this essential experience for our students. Susan and I have been talking about this for a long time, about the importance of it, and it's just critical to the success that they're going to have getting ready for their careers. But I think the second thing is that now, because of the way the grant funding is formatted, it's become part of the required activities for many of the grants, which means to me that it's actually going to happen. So as I say, I'm very pleased that we're really excited to be offering this to you today. I'm hoping it's going to be some inspiration for you. All right, so let's talk about how it is that we're going to spend just our short 45 minutes together that we have today. We're going to talk about why work-based learning is important. We'll talk about what's under the umbrella of work-based learning, and also some great practical ideas that you can use hopefully today on your campus. Now, does it really make a difference for our students? We're going to cover that. Are there ways of doing work-based learning other than the traditional ones that we hear about all the time, like informational interviews and job shadowing and internships? We have a short clip of an interview with a fashion teacher to find out how she's bringing industry into her classroom. Brooke Oliver at Sierra College is on the webinar today, and she's agreed to showcase some of the most effective ways she knows to get students the kinds of experiences they need. And I will review the experience section of the cafe to make sure that you know how and where to access an assignment that you can give to your students to go through that whole experience section on their own. And then toward the end, we'll bring in Rena from Orange Coast College Internships Academy to share some of their strategies and resources, which, by the way, will be posted on the California Career Briefs website for you to download and use. She's been very generous about sharing her materials. We'll make sure that you know where all those resources are located at the end of the webinar. Susan's going to help us out with that. So sit back and relax. It's my goal for you that you have an inspiring and enjoyable experience today. So I'm going to start with this quote because I believe that curiosity has become an essential skill for our students. They should be curious, not necessarily always are, but it's a critical time for them, and I'll tell you why. The first time that they find out about what an industry looks like, or what kind of people really work there, or what it takes to be successful in that particular industry, should not come after graduation or even when they get their first job. We need to make it okay for them to talk to lots of people, look at many different types of workplaces, and try on the skills that are needed in various different occupations. Because we know that their work life is going to probably be much more subject to change than ours has been. So they will need to remain curious and resilient as they move through all these different work cycles. So I'd like to start then our discussion today with a faculty interview. Christina Amaral is over at Orange Coast College. She's not able to be on the webinar today, but I actually think it worked out really well because we went over to her classroom and actually filmed what was going on there and talked to her about some of the innovative ways that she's bringing industry into her class. So I would really like you to stay open while you listen to this and maybe even practice your own curiosity, because you may be thinking, well, I'm not a teacher. You know, what does this have to do with me? I'm not in the classroom every day like Christina is. But I would encourage you to think creatively, because we all know that the most effective thing that we can do with our students is to go where they are. And guess what? On our campuses, that happens to mean in the classroom. But more importantly, how can you bring to the faculty on your campus, because they're probably not on the webinar today, some of the ideas that you're going to hear about? Christina is a very creative, resourceful teacher, and she's been doing this for a very long time. But maybe you can help some of the younger, less experienced ones that you know on your campus by offering to help them. No one says that this whole thing that she's going to be talking about has to be done by the teacher. I think in many ways we can really, as career services and as counseling professionals, can really help them with these connections and to bring some of these ideas to them. So I just ask that you stay open as you listen and be thinking about how it might apply to your world. Pay attention to how she makes connections and how she teaches her students to research companies and reach out to them when they're making business contacts. As I mentioned before, Christina is full-time faculty at Orange Coast College. She's the Fashion Department Program Coordinator. She's passionate about getting to know her students and creating connections with industry. So let's take a look. I ask for your patience because of the webinar. It doesn't always come in real easily. I can't go with the full screen because I don't want it to get jumpy on us. If you have any kind of a problem or if the volume is a problem, you can type a note to Christine where she showed you earlier. So let's take a look. This is probably about a 10-minute or so video. So enjoy.
We're rolling. Okay, so last semester in my beginning sewing class, I decided at the end that it was time to bring industry in with an assignment. Students always get excited when you have an industry partner. So at Orange Coast College, we're surrounded by action sportswear companies. So I called one of my friends and I said, Jeff, would you like to help me with our final project for my beginning sewing class? And he said, sure, come see me. Let's see, what do we want to do? So I went to see him and I said, well, remember, they're beginning sewers. And he goes, all right, I want them to design something. Okay, he wants them to design something. It's not a design class. We're going to figure this out. So the longer I spent with him, the more time I spent with him, we decided that the students would design something, but the parameters I had to create as the teacher. So we talk every single day in class about inspiration. So they had to pull something from their inspiration book, and then they were allowed to design a product as their final assignment for class. So I created the assignment that said we need inspiration, we need a sketch of your product, and then we need the materials that are used, and I wanted to know the target market too, because Jeff's very into target market. So
where's Jeff from?
Yogi Shop in Newport Beach. So Jeff, he's this amazing man that does products. He repurposes all kinds of things. His latest one was with SC and UCLA. He has gone and they give him their old jerseys. Then he repurposes and makes products out of their old jerseys. He sells them back to the school, and then they sell them.
Oh, fabulous.
So he's pretty amazing. So I thought, we wanted sustainability in here, I wanted to figure something out. But when I went to see him, I did not have an idea. But when you work with industry, it really is good to have an idea because they don't know
And how
what
did
you're
you
supposed
know
to
in
do.
your class that it was really time to bring industry in?
Because we had accomplished our goal of all the techniques. We finished all the techniques, and I always try to bring industry into every one of my classes. So sometimes it's through a guest speaker, sometimes we go on a field trip, sometimes, all these different ways you can bring industry in. But this time I thought, I want industry to evaluate a project, to help guide me in creating a project and then to totally evaluate the project. So Jeff gave me enough to create my assignment. I presented it to the class. I showed them online who Jeff is, what he's done, and I said, remember, even though he's telling you to select your own target market, you need to know who he is. So whenever you have an industry partner, it's so important that you know who they are. So we did the whole thing. Students were super excited. I worked with them for a while. He came to class with his son the final night. And some of the students were nervous about presenting. So I said, Jeff, we have to do it in a different way. And he goes, okay, no problem. So he talked about what he had done. He said, I'm really excited to see your projects. And then he says, I'm just going to go from table to table, and I'm going to talk to each one of you individually. Because as a class, we already knew who was doing what because we had kind of presented. And so he did that. The students were so excited. And from that, we created more industry contacts. Because some of the projects, we look, and I said, Jeff, that belongs. He goes, yeah, at bands. I said, yeah, your project belongs at bands. So I gave that student information on what to do there. And then another one, I said, this project is totally Element. And he goes, oh, you're right, it's Element. It's absolutely Element. So different companies we could see would be interested in these students' projects. So we took it one step further, and we gave the students the information to go and present their project to a different industry partner.
And that's really complicated. I know we don't have a lot of time, but can you give us a 30-second on what you'd say to a student to help them know how to go to bands or to Element?
Sure. I always tell them it's all about your commercial and the approach, and most people want to help students and most people want to help educators. So I said what you're going to do is you're going to say, like Nadia, for example, I said you're going to call Nadia at Vans or send her an email and you're going to tell her, I'm in Krista's Fashion 100 class. This was our project. She said it's an amazing piece for Vans. Do you mind if I share it?
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So it's kind of about the commercial.
And it's because you knew the person at the business, which is a really important aspect that I want to make sure that the people that are attending the webinar understand is how they can make those connections with business because it's so time-consuming. Can you give them any hints to help them figure out how to do that more easily?
Absolutely. Even though I have my circle of all these people I already work with, I meet new people all the time, and I love meeting new people. And my favorite way to do it that anyone can do is if I read an article in the paper or you see something online and it's about someone, I seriously will call them, send them an email, and I just say, I'm so excited about what you're doing, and I'd like to meet you. I'm an educator. The minute you say you're an educator, the door kind of opens. If they think you need something from them, like for profit or whatever, it's not as easy. But when you say you're an educator, the door opens. I'll give another really good example, and I share this with my students because I try to teach them how to make the connections themselves in my one careers class. But they think that I never get the door shut on me. I said, oh yeah, I do.
You know to shut the door.
They love to hear my examples. Of course, I come and tell them all the success stories, but I like to tell them failures. So one, for example, was I said, well, one semester I had these students really interested in visual display, and I thought, oh, okay, well, we'll either go to Tiffany's or I'll have the Tiffany's display person come, and they're like, do you know him or her? I go, no. Well, how are we going to get to do that? I go, well, I'll call. We'll work this out. And, of course, the students thought that, oh, my gosh, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And without thinking, I pick up the phone, and I said to whoever answered the phone, can I speak to the person who does the windows? And the person on the other end of the phone said, I'm sorry, we can't give out that information. I said, oh, okay, thank you. And I hung up the phone. And I had to regroup because, like, oh, my gosh, they said no. So then I realized I didn't do that right at all. I hadn't even planned it, and that's part of it. We need to plan and be professional, and I just picked up the phone. So I kind of regrouped, and I thought to myself, I'm doing this all over again. So I picked up the phone. I called the exact same number. 3 minutes later, I said, may I please speak with your store manager? And he said, sure. Get the store manager on the phone, and the very first thing I said was, hello, my name is Chris Amro. I'm a teacher at Orange Coast College, and I'm teaching a careers in fashion class. We have a group of students in our class that are very interested in visual display, and your windows are always the best.
Wow.
So I was wondering if you didn't mind, could you connect me with your visual display coordinator, because I'd love for he or she to kind of tell their story to my class. And he says, absolutely. So I got Todd's name, I called him, and then there's the next step. You get the information, then you get the person, and Todd said, I don't know how to do this. I said, okay, and that's back to what we need to do. And I said, it's a group of students trying to decide what kind of career. All we need to do is tell the story of how you got where you are. And he goes, oh, that's all? So yeah, we want to know, what was your first job? Did you go to school? How did you get there? How did you get this job? And then maybe let's take it to one window. You can talk about one window. We'll come to you, and then you can tell us, what were the directives of the window, et cetera, et cetera. So really the main point here is we need to be prepared, and you need to ask them the appropriate questions to get the information you need. They want to help.
And they don't know.
They don't know how to.
So many times I've seen that people trying to establish partnerships with business, and even the teacher doesn't know what they want. Right? So this is what I think is. That's why I was hoping through this they can see some creative ideas. So you just based on what your class is doing and realize that we're preparing them for the workplace. So we've got to think about how can this better prepare them by actually getting workplace influence.
Okay, I have another idea based on your question. So one of my assignments in my intro class is what we call a brand research assignment. And I'm doing that so that the students will be really aware of the brand or the company before they go out and interview. And so they'll have really good answers to interview questions and or questions for the person that's interviewing them. So I put them in small groups, and they pick the company, so they pick the brand, and I give them, a few basic questions, very, very basic. I said, I want to know the mission statement, or maybe a little history, not long. I want to know what products do they actually make, what is their target market. Then I want to know key player. And they're like, who's a key player? And I said, well, I know you might think the key player is the CEO, but I might think the key player is the receptionist. I might think the key player is the custodian. I might think the key player is the security guard.
Well, how are you defining key players? The entry in?
The important person that you might need to help you get information.
Okay.
Even though this assignment is really about looking things up online and researching yourself, not calling and asking, because that's not being resourceful. You need to be able to figure it out yourself. So we do this. And then at the end I say 3 interesting facts you learned about the company. So the students work together, and we can do it in class. They can use their phones. You know, we're just like, look it up, let's find out. And then they present, and after they present, it's very short. I mean, who's the company? I will also say contact information where they're located. And they give us those 5 basic areas, and then I say, so if I'm interviewing you for a position at Oakley, what's the question you're going to ask me at the end of the interview? And hopefully the question is so amazing because they've done their research, and then the person says, oh my gosh, they looked us up.
They really are teaching them how to get information about a company, the critical kinds of information they need to be able to think more about what they want to know about the company or why they want to work for them.
And to be prepared. It's really about being prepared, because oftentimes students will go on interviews and they think they've answered all the questions right, and then at the end they say, do you have any questions for us? And they don't ask an intelligent question. It could be about a new product. It could be about
I read this or whatever.
But it has to show that you really researched them.
Right. Okay. Excellent. So can you share with us a little bit about the board here behind us? We are in Christina's classroom, by the way.
In my intro to fashion class, we have guest speakers every single week, and we go on field trips because the goal is to expose them to industry. I ask the students to take notes and to get basic information like the person's name, the job title, the industry experience and or education, and then terminology is always important. So I ask them to collect 4 terms with definitions and words of wisdom. So collecting that information with every speaker is really, really important. Even if they don't go that direction, they're learning terminology, they're learning that they don't like that or they do like that. But then the assignment is to create a mind map. So our mind maps, these are mind maps. And right, they're mind maps, and it's all about the visual piece. You should be able to look at any of those mind maps and know the name of the company without reading the text.
Oh.
So you see we have everything from Hurley to Element to Ruka and 31 Bits and Harvey's, and that's Quicksilver, and all different companies. So we tell them to start with an image and then to create the text, the required text, and place it on the mind map.
Very cool.
All right. I'm assuming you can, Christine, just give me a heads up that you can hear me again.
Everything's great, Rita.
Okay, good. All right. So I think you have a little general idea of why we brought faculty in at this point. But just a few key things. I wish I were in person with you right now because I'd love to have a few of you respond to what you got out of that. But I'm going to mention just a few key things that I picked up. Number 1, it's the teacher's job to tie it to the curriculum. And they should have some idea about how our business partners, what we actually want from them and how they can help us. Second, the easiest way to connect with business through reaching out is to compliment them. Find something they do well. I mean, everyone responds to that. And make sure you tell them you're an educator. Third, this critical skill of learning how to research a company. I really liked Christina's way that she was teaching them to do that, to speak about it, and also learn to ask questions from the information that they're gathering. This kind of practice and skill is going to help them so much in networking events and when they go for job interviews. Fourth, the mind map, the wealth of information, and there's something really personal for our students, I think, when they come up with a graphic and the way to make it look and to put those few pieces of essential information together. Also, I really liked her idea that she occasionally will send these 1 or so of 2 from the class as a thank you to that particular business person for speaking. Can you imagine if you got something like one of these works of art as a thank you for coming to the classroom? I thought it was an awesome idea. So lastly, what can you do in your class Or how did this inspire you to connect industry partners? And it can be done in every subject area. We had to cut it short here because we are running out of time. We don't have enough to cover more. But there's all kinds of ways. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just a career class that brings in industry people. You know, even English or mathematics could easily mimic a business and be able to write blogs or do, you know, all kinds of equations based on what a business that all those students decide is a cool one could be the model for that particular curriculum. But enough about that for now. Let's move on to our next piece. And I'm delighted that Brooke Oliver is here on the call with us today. She's from Sierra College. She's the Career Services Director and Counselor. She's been a friend for many years, and I know many of you on the call also know her. I consider her a very creative genius and always has a fresh perspective on what students really need and how to best connect with them. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Brooke, and you can tell me when you want me to move the slides forward.
Okay. Great. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be part of this because I do love the idea of work-based learning. When I first started here at Sierra College, I was tasked with building the idea of work-based learning and have that be far beyond internships, which is kind of the go-to activity. As we saw in the video, there are so many other ways to make the kinds of connections and the true industry, collect the true industry knowledge that we know will really help our students. I feel like this is a lost piece of career exploration. It is a bit more intensive. It takes some time and some coordination and collecting of people and teaching the students how to go about it, but I do think it's the biggest bang that we can have, the biggest bang experience that students can do, because they're going to gain information they can't get anywhere else. There's nothing like going to a site and seeing, smelling, feeling the culture, hearing the folks talk, that just lets them know, you know, this is not what they see on TV, which I think could be the #1 lesson for them to learn that happens with any kind of work-based learning. I do think that offering a variety of different types of experiences, because as much as I love internships, not everyone can dedicate a semester or a significant number of hours week after week. So coming up with things that were mentioned both in the video as well as kind of the traditional job shadow informational interviewing. We've been trying to encourage students to go to professional association meetings, bring panelists here and have panel speakers, bring guest speakers into class. So for me, the variety and access, the way that I've made it work for our program is we maintain and have built something called Mentor Network. That's an online database of folks that are willing to offer any number of types of what we would call work-based learning options. Right now we have it maintained within our job posting system that we buy from College Central. So they already had built that module and we put it to use almost before we started posting jobs on the system. It does offer all types of work-based learning options. Folks who go into it can sign up for one or more of the activities that we have that would range from an informational interview to a job shadow, mentorship, internship, class speaker, hosting a class tour, because sometimes they, like we heard, industry would like to help, but they don't know how. So this gives them, I think, kind of a brainstorming way. And often they'll volunteer for one, and then we'll go back and say, okay, we got you for one. What else can you do? And would you be willing to do this? And they get hooked. Some of you might be thinking, well, how do I even start? You already have so many connections. Just in maintaining job postings, you can use that list to start reaching out to different industry partners and building it. If you have internship sites, so you have folks that go out on site visits, have them report back to you who the dynamic folks are and who often, when I go, ask me, what else can I do? How else can I help you guys? Because I really like what you're doing. Reel them in and say, give them a task. Can you come speak to this class? Can you come and do this or that? And then don't forget about, especially for the CTE programs, their advisory committees. Those are folks that are already invested in some way, shape, or form. And what I've found is that again, if you get people to commit to one little thing, it's easier to go back and ask them, okay, now that you've done that, would you be willing to do this and then do this? And pretty soon they're a solid partner. And of course, I try and be a good partner on campus and share anybody that I find, employers or in interactions out in the community, I refer them back to join our advisory committees. I might refer them back to our foundation for other kinds of connections to the college. As Rita said, we really have to reach students where they are. I don't know if I have some kind of invisibility shield around our front door for career connections, but short of I'm hiring some person waving a Mr. Pickle sandwich sign outside our door, I don't know how to get students to walk through. So I've got to go and find them. The first, most obvious, as was mentioned, is the classroom. What I try and do is as I meet people who are dynamic out in the world of work, I actually invite them back and I help arrange for guest speakers, and I will contact faculty members and say, I've got this amazing person. In fact, it just happened yesterday. I was talking with a faculty member and I said, you know, we've got this great chocolate company here in Loomis, and I would love for that they're a startup. I'd love for them to get connected with your entrepreneurship class. And she was so excited to have that because not all the faculty have the time or inclination to go and create those connections. So if I've got them, I'm going to share. Other ways that we can help with guest speakers is, again, in the mentor network, we do have folks that have volunteered to speak in class, so I will provide our faculty access to that so they can find their own. As I said, I might recommend a speaker to a faculty member, and then if I can, because I have staff and they don't, we may offer to make arrangements on the things that would help them successfully bring a speaker to campus. I have a tip sheet that I give them called the care and feeding of guest speakers that reminds them, if you're going to set it up on your own, can you remember to give them a parking permit? How about a map so they can find you, a bottle of water, and can you send them a thank you note? Because, again, I recommended them, and hopefully they'll want to come back either for that faculty member or maybe for me in the future. The other place to find students is if you go where the food is, that's where they'll be. So in our quad and cafeteria, we'll set up a table with laptops so that they can either sign up for Sierra JobLink, our posting system. They can look at internship opportunities. We're taking that access to them. We'll take out handouts on majors or whatever we're trying to push right now, internships, hot jobs. And our biggest thing is to get students to register for Sierra JobLink, because then we have our dedicated audience that we can send texts to about events that are happening on campus or speakers that are coming or other things that get lost in the shuffle if I try and broadcast it out to everyone. And then, of course, there's campus events. We love to put on events here in Career Services, but we're tired. And we kind of have hit our max of what we can be solely responsible for. So what we decided to do is that we would kind of glom on to other events on campus. So the ones that are listed on the slide there is the science, our science faculty. We have a natural science museum here on campus. And every 2 years they put on something called Dinosaur Days. And it's a huge, huge event. And I thought, you know, there's so many people and kids and community members coming through. I'm missing an opportunity. So we created a booth, and we titled it with a big banner, Careers If You Love Dinosaurs. And we created all these handouts about what is it to be a paleontologist, what is it to be an archivist. We brainstormed out. I'm also the transfer center, so we also talked about the CSUs and UCs that have archaeology and paleontology degrees that they could transfer to. And it ended up being, you know, a good conversation starter, but we had tons of parents and stuff come through, and I think it was worth our Saturday. There's a Kids Day on campus, and we partner with our early childhood ed and education faculty, and they do their own stuff, but we asked if we could add in a workshop for Careers If You Love Kids. So they did all the marketing to get the audience there. They set up the facility stuff, and we just showed up. And lastly, handouts. Sometimes maybe all we can do is have a handout, and we'll get it at the main event booth. So for Earth Day, we did the whole handout on green careers, majors, and industries, just so that we had our, you know, oar in the pond, as we might say. The last slide is that our main handout that we use across campus and that we kind of call our universal is something called What to Do with a Major In. And I think everyone has something like this, and you may have stolen it from the same place that we do, so got to give the kudos to University of North Carolina, Wilmington. We started with theirs, and then we added some. We subscribed to Voc Bios Online. They gave us permission to put a short bio block down the left-hand side of the first page. And then, as you can see, there's a huge list. In this case, we have nursing. We don't have any other allied health care, but as we know, many of our nursing programs, with it being highly competitive, our nursing students may not make it in. So we want to give them a plan B, usually with the same prereqs. So we came up with this. Okay, maybe you didn't get into nursing, but look at all the other cool things you could do. And then, as we saw on the second page, this one is a multi-page handout. Here's all different kinds of internet sites where you can go and find out more about each one of these if you don't know that much. Professional associations you could join. There's usually an area on the skills and abilities that you gain by taking these kinds of classes, what the employment settings are. And then we always put in there the career building strategies. It's not enough to take the classes. You've got to do something beyond that. You've got to be proactive, be curious, be wondering, and so there we can tie them into back again to, as you can see, the mentor network, having an internship, etc. And then, as you can see down at the bottom, we tie them into our campus resources and back to us. And then for this specific one, we've tracked that, not every community college can offer every allied health. So this is I think we need to update this version, but this was last year's of all of the different options and across Northern California where they would go after they did their prereqs with us. So we would take this and distribute it to the pre-nursing classes, give it to the counselors that work specifically with nursing. We might have it out if there was a day that was a date or an event that was related to nursing or allied health. So that's our handout. We have one developed for each of our majors here on campus, and then a few of these that are a little bit covering a larger industry rather than a specific major. That's how we do it here. We're always looking for new ideas, so I'll look forward to hearing from all of you. If you want to follow up on any of this stuff, please feel free to contact me. My information will be available at the end.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brooke. That was awesome. Remember, both Rena and Brooke have agreed to share some of their resources, and as I mentioned, Susan at the end will show you where those are going to be. All right, moving right along, I want to leave enough time for everything that we have here today. So let's talk a little bit about getting your students prepared for all these work-based learning experiences that we've been talking about so far. If you'll take a look at the right-hand side of your screen, and please note that we're on California Career Brief's website right now, our professional website. Again, you'll see more about that in a few minutes. But I'm going to look at the career action plans. Specifically, we're looking at the one about experience. Now, I'm not going to go into great depth today about what's on the cafe. We have some really good resources to help prepare your students, but I am going to show you this guide through the cafe and through that section. I think what we found is it's really hard for our busy professionals on the campus to be able to outline specifically for a student exactly where to go to, to take advantage of what is related to what they're trying to teach them. So we created these, which is really a guide, kind of a three-step process, real simple for students to follow. Oh, that is so not what I wanted to do. Let me get out of that. Sorry. You just have to click on the wrong thing here. Wait, let me bring that back. Oh, here we go. Let me get to the next page if I can. So let's just take a peek inside of what one of these career action plans look like, and then I'll tell you where to get those. If you happen to work in either under a grant or for any reason need to collect data, there is a pre and a post test for each of those 4 caps, the 4 sections of the cafe, and I'll show you where that is. This is just a sample of what the table of contents looks like. You'll see step 1, 2, and 3. This happens to be step 1. Each of those blue links is going to lead them back to that activity on the cafe. The worksheets are all included here and part of this. You can just tell the student to do the activity and bring that back to you once it's completed. And if you're not familiar with the cafe, I always like to make the point about how cool the activities are. They're very interactive. This particular one is really good for work-based learning. They can record a script on their cell phone, one that is requesting an informational interview, because remember, they aren't getting this practice anywhere else. It's really up to us to assign it, to allow them time to do it in class, whatever it is we need to do to get them more comfortable with making connections and what to say and guiding them and all of that. So I really like this activity that's included in this particular one. Step 2 has to do with volunteering. We won't go over that very much. And then the Educator's Guide is in the same place on the Career Briefs website in the free resource section. And I want to point out a couple of things here. First of all, this link right here is, we're talking about the experience cap. This link right here is the one that you can just send to a student via email, and then they can go right there and click on that and be able to access this electronic guide or activity. This is also part of that experience section. It's on professional associations, which is excellent. This has a lot to do with the internship piece. And then in the end, there's actually a bonus on this particular cap that takes them through the mentors. I love that mentor section on the cafe, leadership qualities, that sort of thing. All that's included. There's a checklist. You can, as a teacher or a career professional, find out exactly where they are on this whole area of experience. All right. And then here's the post-test, that once your students have taken the pre-test, you can tell by the results of the post-test how they're doing on those student learning outcomes, which, to make it easy for you, are also included in that Educator's Guide. In fact, there's student learning outcomes there for all 4 sections of the cafe, as there is for all of the 4 different caps, one for each of those sections. So let's move into kind of an internship piece here. And I just included this quickly because this particular director of career services in New York makes the point that no degree is worthless, but many students wrongfully assume that a degree guarantees a job. And she tells her students, we're not just giving you an education and you're going to walk out and be successful. You have to do your internships. You have to have work-related experiences. So I think it's really our job and up to us to make sure students understand how valuable that is. I know Brooke made reference to the fact that I think a lot of her speaking has to do with talking to students about the importance of work-based learning. So now let's turn it over to Rena at Orange Coast College. I had the delightful experience of getting to work with Rena when I was at Orange Coast. She's been there for over 14 years now and feels like what she does best is to help students achieve their goals. So, Rena, you're on.
Great. Thank you for having me. I wanted to share some exciting information that we've been doing the past few years about our Internship Academy. And to start off, I wanted to define what an internship is. An opportunity to explore careers in a supervised, structured learning experience in a professional setting. And we encourage all our student interns to be in a supervised setting because we want them to receive feedback. We want them to interact with other employees at the company and just see how things run. So doing internships from home, on your laptop, no interaction, we don't really consider that a true internship. So when students come in, we want to make sure it's in a structured environment. Okay? As far as employer recruitment, our 2 big items are a job and internship fair. A few years ago, we decided to combine and join in internship opportunities. So if an employer was not hiring, but they're willing to have an intern, we have opened that up to one big job fair, and it's a great way to bring those employers on our campus. The faculty get to meet with them, but the students get to interview for internships, and then eventually some of those do turn into jobs. So consider turning your job fair into a combination job and internship fair, and then having an available online job and internship board where employers can post their job or internships. And again, when that employer is contacting you, you want to make sure you have information It's quick and easy because you want to take time to service their needs. So something online. We do also use College Central, as Brooke mentioned before. Okay. This is our brochure. So another marketing piece that we have available that we can give out to our employers. This brochure actually meets the needs for the employers, our faculty advisors, and our students. And it breaks down the requirements for our program. As you see, it has the hours. Students can enroll in 1, 2, 3, or 4 units. And then it talks about what the student needs to do to attend and enroll. And then on the right side, if the employer says, well, what do I have to do? There's the list of the employer roles. And then faculty, if they want to participate in our program, and as well as the students, their role. So I love this brochure because it meets the needs of all 3 roles of our student internship program. And then this is the back side. So we have our College Central website where they can post for free. I have included my contact information, and then just some other information that they can contact me and reach out, and then I'll probably use some of that Career Cafe to update that Did You Know section. Okay. How we communicate with our employers. The employers are emailing me. They are providing information that they would like to hire or host our interns. So we have really made it a point to respond to their emails and their phone calls within 24 to 48 hours. Again, we feel that since they're contacting us, we want to jump on that opportunity and provide some information that will help one of our students receive either a job or internships. And then we also survey our employers. We're always asking for feedback, how we can do it better, what would they like of us from our campus, do they want to do a workshop? Do they want to go in a classroom? How we should change our program? So really getting information on how we can do things better for our students. Next. Okay. So our student prep. So we do have students who are interested in doing an internship, but they're not quite ready yet. So what we have provided every semester is what we call internship orientation. Students will come to our meeting and we explain the process of enrolling. We explain the responsibilities. This is a course graded. There are a certain number of hours required. And then we also talk about our measurable student learning outcomes because we do want it to be structured so students are learning what they will be learning during their internship and how it can be a measurable result at the end. So we're really prepping the students that this needs to be a structured environment. And on the screen there, this is our student learning outcomes agreement, and we have developed an area for 3 outcomes. And students will be learning much more, but we want them to identify at least 3. We want to know what they will learn, how they will learn it, and how it can be measured, because the employer will provide a grade on these 3 outcomes at the end of the semester. And as you see on the bottom there, there's room for 3 signatures. The student needs to sign off on this. The employer agrees to provide support to these outcomes, and then the faculty make sure that it is written in a way that it's related to their major. So this is an agreement we send out before they start, and then at the end of the semester, this is measured and graded. So this has been very helpful to keep supervisors kind of in line about what they should be teaching the students at their internship site. And the goal is for our interns to be employed. And at the end of every semester, we do have at least a handful of students do get offered employment, and which has been, again, hugely successful on our campus.
There we go. Can you hear me again, I hope? All right. Super. Thank you, Rena. That was wonderful. Listen, I apologize, and I really appreciate all your patience. We are running a few minutes over, so if you can join us, the best is yet to come. Susan is going to take just a couple of minutes to share with you where some of the great work-based learning resources are. So I'm going to turn it over right away to her so she can conclude here. Susan.
Thank you, Rita, and to Rena and Brooke, and of course, Christina, you've all done a fabulous job. We created this CaliforniaCareerBriefs.com website to have a place to put resources for faculty and counselors. You will notice that over on the left-hand side, you quick tips, and that's a newsletter, e-newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks during the school year, the QT library with past QTs, and then the CAPs that Rita talked about. At the bottom, the important for today is there's a button there for webinars, so our webinar that we're doing today will be archived on that page. And then work-based learning has its own button, and then we also have a variety of free resources. Under free resources, here are our print resources. Again, you have another opportunity for the career action plans, but these are print resources that we've developed and also some other grant-funded projects have developed over the years, and we hated to see them get lost. We no longer have hard copies, but you feel free to copy them in any way that you might want to. There's resources for community colleges, middle schools, and high schools. Then on the work-based learning tab, I want to just take a quick minute to point out the work-based learning handbook over on the left-hand side, and then the third one down, the career practicum, a work-based learning strategy. That is a practicum or a report and a resource that's come out from Linked Learning. And many of you that are working on CCPT grants, you're required to do internships in work-based learning. This is a good guide. So these are all free resources. We're planning on doing more update on the work-based learning, and we really appreciate you using any of our resources. Are totally free. Here's the webinars. So we have some Kate Brooks webinars, and then the Career Action Plan webinars. We'll add the new webinars from this series to the webinar page, so you'll be able to find them easily. Next. Here's our new webinar series. Okay, go ahead, Rita.
No, I was going to have you go ahead.
Be sure and join us for our next webinars. What's a DSN? How many of you know what that is? And how does doing what matters for jobs in the economy impact you or your students? And that's going to be on February 19th. Please pre-register. And the third one is what's working for student success. That's on Thursday, March 19th. Rita's done a great job of pulling in resources and pulling in people that are experts in the areas today, and she'll be doing that again on February 19th and March 19th. So be sure and pre-register for the webinar.
Good, thanks. And I think for the DSN one that's next, we had such success at the fall workshops bringing in personally the DSNs to talk with all of our career professionals and counselors, and some really good things have happened as a result from that. So we hope to share some of that so you'll get even more ideas about how to really utilize that resource well. So I think we're just about at the end. We want to thank you so much for attending. Please let us know if you have questions. We want to thank the whole team that worked so hard to keep this together. And Susan, if you have any last comments, or I'll turn it back over to Christine, and we hope to see all of you at the next webinar.
Rita, or Christine, do you want to unmute and see if there are any questions that people would like to ask or they would like to share at this time?
Okay, they can always type a question in the questions box. Yeah, I don't see any, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to do that.
And do they know that this will be archived in that webinar section? This webinar will be?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're good. All right. Well, thank you all for attending. It's been great. Christine, any last words you have?
I want to thank you, Rita, and all of our panelists. It was great, and just remind everyone to join us next month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.